I would imagine enormous relief. I probably suppose Kyle Walker and Harry Kane will understand as well. Obviously, they were part of that Iceland game back in 2016, where they'll understand the incalculable amount of criticism that can come your way if you go out of a tournament in that fashion. And I think Gareth's obviously seen that before as well as a coach and as a player. So I think it will be one of enormous relief. And they'll hope that, I think that 4 times now they've played in this tournament, they've been below par. They'll hope that this is the catalyst for what would be an improved performance level and a change of direction in performance. I do think winning is everything in tournaments, but performance matters, because eventually I think there's only so far you can go being the sort of, if you like, inferior team or not playing as well as you can and winning. It'll eventually catch you out, and I think that it will catch England out on Saturday if they keep playing at the same level. So I think that relief will be the key word this morning.
Yeah, huge relief when that goal went in from Jude Bellingham. I mean, I think it's fair to say saving the tournament for England with just literally seconds to go. How good was that goal in that particular moment to produce such real quality technique under such circumstances?
Oh, it was incredible. I mean, the ability to be able to do it, the timing of it, last-minute goals are an absolute dream just for every team. It's not the way in which you were designed to win, because you'd like to be more comfortable. But when you do win in that way, I know that didn't bring the win, but it effectively got England through. They were out, they were done. It was a special moment. And I think, to be fair, I think maybe hopefully the players will see is that in that moment, up and down the country, in the stadium from England fans, that everyone is absolutely desperate for England to do well and desperate for England to score and win games and play better. I think over the last couple of weeks, the players have been sort of, if you like, a little bit hurt by the criticism that they've been getting. But that criticism has been, I think, in most places, 99% of the time, well meant. And Jude Bellingham yesterday produced a moment which saved that group of players from an enormous amount of criticism. Just generally for the talent base they've got in the squad and the fact that they've obviously performed how they have so far.
I just want to pick up on that criticism. And I mean, Jude did make comments himself, didn't we, about that from both the press and the fans. He felt after the game. Does it concern you that this group are listening to the outside noise?
Yeah, I think that one thing that's been, I suppose, marvellous in some ways over the last 6 years, I've got a long history with England going back to 1996. And I've seen it from all fronts. I came into a group of players who would come out of that very sort of, I suppose, difficult period. When obviously there was significant criticism when we didn't qualify for the '94 World Cup. The Graham Taylor's obviously team in '92 had performed badly in the Euros, and there was a real downer on the England team. And that carried through that group and generation of players, even through to my generation, where there was this fear factor, there was this scapegoat mentality in the press. It was brutal. It was an element of us against them. The press aren't with us. And I think Gareth removed that in its entirety in the last 6 years. He's brought the sort of, if you like, the excitement of playing for England back. It's obviously helped by the fact that the lads have done really well in football matches and they've got to the last stages of tournaments. But for the first time in this tournament, there are definitely sort of, the mood music, the body language, the messages that they're sending us, sometimes directly, sometimes subliminally. You've got to read between the lines, that they're letting it impact them, and that they're sort of, if you like, becoming a little cynical towards what would be the media, journalists, broadcasters, pundits. I would urge them not to let that happen. There is only one winner. And it's not you, the players, unfortunately, because once your mind starts to be distracted away, we had a manager at United who could use the fear factor, who could use the siege mentality as a weapon. It was the way he was built. Gareth's not built like that. You see Gareth's interviews. He doesn't behave in that manner. He doesn't work in that manner, should I say. And I don't think it's the way in which England have succeeded. So I think when you hear Gareth describing an unusual environment, or Jude Bellingham referring to the sort of criticism, and I think Declan Rice mentioned questions of character of people, I think that's something that needs to go quite quickly, because it tends to mean that you're just a slight distraction. You've got a slight distraction in your head, And ordinarily, it doesn't allow you to be free and play football brilliantly like this group of lads have done for a number of years.
How do you think Southgate is handling the tournament? From an outside perspective, the camp seems to have a different feel to previous tournaments under him. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, it does. It does. There's no doubt. Sometimes when you're in there, you can't see the wood for the trees and you might think everything's the same, but it's not this time. Something is different. But Gareth, that little bit of luck that he'll feel he got yesterday and good fortune, whatever you want to put down to, footballing gods, he deserves it for the way in which he's coached England, the way in which he's managed the group, the whole, I don't say the group actually, I say the whole situation of England. England, Gareth's only the coach of the England team for a sort of limited number of days per year, but the way in which he's handled the sort of, if you like, the culture, the FA, the politics, the media, the stress of the job, he's handled it brilliantly over a 8-year period. And he's getting the look that he deserves for that period in view. And I'm torn this morning because my heart is saying that it's written in the stars that Gareth is actually going to go and win this tournament from having this very, very scruffy start to it in terms of performances and how we've sort of got over the line. But my head is saying that if we continue to play like we are and he doesn't interfere with it, that we will get knocked out on Saturday against Switzerland if we carry on in the vein that we have done. We have to up our game or else we will fall against one of these teams that are superior in the latter stages. But then the heart's coming back to the fact that they keep getting over the line, and Gareth's had that little bit of steel, that little bit of something in this last 7 or 8 years, which has meant that England do go far in tournaments under him, and that's something to hang on to.
Yeah, it absolutely is, isn't it? What about substitutes and the timing of this? Because there was a lot of criticism about, how long it took Southgate to make his substitutes yesterday. Were you in that camp? Were you willing substitutes to be made either half-time or a lot sooner than when he did eventually make changes?
Yeah, I was very surprised that there weren't changes at half-time. And then I was surprised, I think Gareth admitted it himself, that Tony was was angry to come on with 2 minutes to go. And we couldn't believe it in the studio over here in Berlin that he was coming on with 2 minutes to go in extra time, with very little chance to impact the game. Obviously, he did impact it in extra time. So, yeah, we thought that there would be more significant changes, that there would be greater interference, but Gareth's not going to do that now. I think it does need some type of change. But I think Gareth in the first 4 games has made as limited a change as he could possibly do. He'll be forced into one on Saturday with obviously Gahey being suspended. But I think other than that, I think he's going to go with pretty much the players as he sees it and try and almost in some ways play them into form just through consistency and the fact that they're working together more and there's a resilience building in them. But it just feels to me like there is a different dynamic. He mentioned imbalance there in his little interview that he did before he came on here. That imbalance will remain, I think, whilst we keep continuing to pick the same players. I think there is a balance, a rebalance and a reset needed, but I'm not sure we're going to get it.
So do you see then changes to the forward line for Switzerland on Saturday? Do you think Foden and Saka keep their place? How do you think he's going to, head into this one? It's so difficult, isn't it, to predict?
Yeah, it was unthinkable. I think the unthinkable is dropping Saka, is dropping Foden, or leaving them out and rotating them, because they're both special players. But I think having someone run past, if Harry Kane's going to stay, in which he will, then having someone directly off that left side run past Harry Kane rather than Phil Foden coming round the face into sort of like the spaces. I think having Gordon run past Harry Kane, I think having Palmer on the right. I do think bringing Trent Alexander-Arnold in at fullback, and I don't know what's happening with, obviously Kieran Trippier went off yesterday, and I agree with Gareth. I think he's done a sterling job filling in at left back. But I think against these teams that we're playing, we can afford to have players who probably are a bit more dynamic on the ball. Kyle Walker will stay in the team. He had one of his most difficult games that I think I've seen in the last few years yesterday defensively. But he will stay in the team, obviously. He's been an important player for England. But I think Trent Alexander-Arnold his use of the ball, his delivery. I can't think that our defence is that good that when it comes up against good teams, we won't need a more effective forward line to score more goals. And I think yesterday was a massive warning sign. There was all alarm bells ringing. They were ringing in the group phase, but we thought it might change yesterday. We were very positive before the match, building up the game, but we saw the same stuff again. And we were 1 minute away, 1.5 minutes away from something that would have been, I mean, you imagine the mood this morning if we were talking, having England got beat. It's unthinkable, and it nearly happened. It so nearly happened.
I'm only just getting over Scotland, Gary, and it's my first day back at work today, so I wasn't looking forward to that, I'll have to say, even as a Scotland fan. Lots of people were looking forward to seeing Trent Alexander-Arnold playing at his best, as we want to with all of these players, but just focusing on him specifically, where do you think he fits in best?
I mean, I think if we're playing against Slovakia and we're going to have 65-70% of the ball, and we've got Walker, Gay and Stones at the back, I do think we can afford to have a player that's, I think, obviously he has been criticised for his defending, and I've been part of that group, but I think he's improved a lot this year in his defensive work, to a point whereby you could comfortably trust him against Slovakia at right back and put Kyle Walker to left back. And having moved down that right-hand side, delivering those wicked crosses and passes into the box and setting up play. So I think that just he's in his best position at right back against these teams. I mean, if we were playing a team that had, let's say Mbappe was playing left wing for France down the line somewhere, you could understand why Kyle Walker would be up against Mbappe in that game. And you would then sort of say, well, fair enough, it makes sense. But I think the teams that we're playing against, we're going to have the majority of the ball. They haven't got outstanding left wingers. Not talking about sort of, if you like, game changers. And this kid's played 300 games for Liverpool and won Champions League medals and Premier League titles. So I think it's, to me, the way in which he uses the ball, I just think that we look so rigid on the ball. We look so safe that having him on the pitch, I just think, which is what Gareth thought himself in the first couple of games in midfield, I just think as a fullback, he's not really a massive risk at all.
Let's stick with issues at the back, because there's a big problem that obviously Southgate is going to have to solve before Saturday. Who plays at centre-back with Mark Gay? He's going to be suspended. It's going to be a forced change. Who do you think it will be?
Just quickly on Trent Alexander-Arnold, I don't think Gareth will bring him in, by the way, because he didn't even bring him on at left wing-back or right wing-back in extra time. He brought Konza on at left wing-back and kept Saka at right wing-back. So I don't think we'll be using Trent Alexander-Arnold. I would imagine Konza will come in at centre-back. That's what I would think will happen, and the rest of the back four will remain the same, is what I think Gareth will do.
Let's talk about, and we've talked about it a lot, building up to the tournament, the whole tournament, the balance on the left-hand side. OK, you've touched on it, needs to be addressed, doesn't it? I mean, still uncertain whether or not Luke Shaw will be able to play any part at all this weekend. What do you think? Is there any point in him being there if not?
Well, apparently he was available to be used off the bench yesterday. He's now got 5 days of training and work he can put into his legs and his body before Saturday. It's a big risk. I mean, obviously a fit Luke Shaw, he's a big asset. And I do think that obviously the reason that, maybe the left side is not working as much as it should be is exactly the same reason their left side didn't work at Manchester United for the 3 months that Diego Dallo or Aaron Wan-Bissaka or Victor Lindelof were playing there, is that, Marcus Rashford, who was on that left-hand side, or if it was Garnacho, they struggled more when Luke Shaw wasn't, if you like, linking with them and supporting them. I know a lot about relationships in terms of right back and right side and left back and left side. It's really important, and England haven't had that, and they've suffered with it. And Phil Foden suffered with it because he'd be fantastic playing with Luke Shaw on that left-hand side. I'm sure Luke Shaw could underlap, he could overlap, he could provide that support that would be needed, the balance that Gareth talked about in that interview, but we haven't got it. Is it too big a risk, I think, to play him on Saturday? My gut feeling is yes, but also my absolute unequivocal sort of position is that England need to take risks, that they need to do something to change something. And if Gareth can think he can get a performance out of Luke Shaw on Saturday, then I think he'll put him in. But it would be a massive risk, obviously, having not played football since back at I was at the game back in, I think it was February. I think it was my birthday, actually, at Luton Town away. I couldn't believe he played that day for United, and he did, and he's not played since.
Let's just talk about opposition then. Switzerland, I mean, they looked very good against Italy, didn't they, on Saturday? England are going to need to be at their absolute best.
Yeah, they'll get beat. England will get beat on Saturday if they carry on if they play like they have. And let's be really clear again. If you'd have handed this England squad, Gareth Southgate and the players and us as fans, Switzerland in a quarter-final 3 weeks ago, we'd just snap your hand off. But Switzerland are playing well. They're a decent team. They're not to be disrespected in any way, shape or form, and won't be by the players. But let's be clear, if we don't step up our performance levels, we are going out on Saturday. We have to step up from where we've been in this last 4 matches, because we were very fortunate to get past Slovakia. We rolled our luck in the group thinking that, I think Denmark had scored in that last game. We'd have gone to second and we'd have been in a different part of the draw. We'd have played Germany. So we've rolled our luck twice now. It could be written in the stars that we ride our luck all the way to the final, but my head is telling me that we will hit a major obstacle if we continue to play like we are. And I think we do need to take a risk on Saturday and free ourselves up. They look like England teams have passed that, look frightened to death in the first half yesterday. I've never seen that group of lads like that. I don't know what was wrong with them.
Yeah, well, here is hoping how it ended will be how they pick up and can continue on Saturday. Thank you very much for your time, Gary. It's much appreciated.